Donald Trump supporters and Trump himself may never find peace. Oh, these aren't my words. These are the words of the modern day Snow White, Rachel Zegler. But this Snow White is clearly not the same. In Rachel's own words, this one is different. She is fearless, she's fair, she's brave,
She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Snow White is running for president.
That's right. So fearless, fair, brave, and independent. These are some of the qualities of the new Snow White. But Rachel actually forgot to mention that unlike the Snow White that we have all loved growing up, this Snow White is also a little bit toxic, a little bit political, and not likable at all. So as we all know, Rachel Zegler's Snow White is an absolute flop. 1.5 out of 10 in IMDb, with critics calling it an unnecessary remake, garbage, disaster, and literally the worst film of the decade. But the question is, what exactly went wrong here? You know, picking up a Disney classic and remaking it into a live action, it is bound to succeed. I mean, look at the previous releases. Look at releases like Lion King or Aladdin. Yeah, they were instant hits. But what went wrong with Snow White? This clip from the 1937 backwards version of the classic Snow White has the answer.
Who is the fairest one of all?
Lips red as the rose, skin white as snow.
Snow White.
What you just saw in that clip was literally the foundation and the building block of Snow White. That's how people relate to Snow White, you know, the fairest of them all, and literally white as snow. Now let's listen to Zegler as she tries to explain and interpret this part of the classic.
The true meaning of fair is the kindness within, and that's the point of our film. And so being fair means much more than what meets the eye.
The true meaning of fair is the kindness within.
Amen.
I like that.
That's the whole message of the film. It always has been since 1937.
Wow. So that's Zegler's interpretation of the 1937 Snow White film. But the question is, if the message of the 1937 film was so beautiful, why did Zegler go on and about bashing the film every single opportunity that she got?
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time. A lot of people will assume it's a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie.
Right.
Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But it's...
I can only imagine how Zegler's co-star must have felt after listening to that interview. I mean, talking about his parts getting cut off. Really? Whenever people criticized Zegler's casting, they were instantly dismissed as racist. But the truth is, nobody wants to see an actor who openly dislikes a very beloved character portray them. You know, the real issue was never race. It was the passion, the respect for the role, and the authenticity of Snow White.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
It is as clear as day that Disney is not proud of its history. It has made some very terrible mistakes in the past and has offended many people. Its official mascot, literally the face of the company, Mickey Mouse, has reflected stereotypes that have been at times very offensive. And despite not being very proud of its history, Disney is clearly very proud of the money that its history made. And that's why, instead of creating new IPs, it continues to try and capitalize on those same dated IPs. I mean, if those IPs were so bad, so terrible, so racially offensive, why not just abandon them and go create something new? Disney needs to realize that it is more than a filmmaking company. For a lot of people, Disney was literally their childhood, and there's generations of people who still exist on this world today who grew up on classics such as Snow White. And if you take somebody's childhood and totally turn it into a political scandal and have somebody as toxic as Rachel Zegler play the part of the lead Snow White, obviously people are going to be offended, and obviously it's not going to be good for your company. Disney needs to realize that being woke is no longer cool and is no longer politically correct because, Donald Trump, in my view, has really redefined political correctness. Being woke is out, and Disney needs to wake up before it's too late. And when I talk about Snow White being woke, I'm not just going after Rachel Zegler, no. I'm talking about Disney's wokeness really taking away jobs from people that really need it and really want it. In the 2025 recreation of Snow White, there are no 7 dwarfs. Instead, it's really 7 CGI-created magical creatures. And that's because Game of Thrones, Peter, you all know Peter, he said,
"You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?"
That while Rachel being casted as Snow White is a very progressive thing, having 7 dwarves live together in a cave is very backwards. And Disney in response said that they'll be working or consulting with the dwarf community and they'll be trying to figure out a middle ground. And they did. They chose not to hire any dwarf actor and just go for CGI created magical creatures. And while it seems okay, it's a film for kids, so, magical creatures, dwarfs, it doesn't really make a difference for them, right? But it does. It does make a difference when it comes to real life, because there are actors who are not very tall, who suffer from dwarfism, and they were looking forward to Disney possibly auditioning for the role of the 7 dwarfs. One of those actors is former WWE superstar Hornswoggle turned actor, who was also hoping that he'd be casted as one of the dwarfs. There are not many opportunities available for these guys in acting in Hollywood, and roles like these are literally their only hope. And because of Disney being super careful, walking on eggshells, really being super woke, they took away those job opportunities from at least 7 members of the dwarf community.
He wants to be progressive, and it's all about progression, and I support that completely. But the issue is, him being progressive is eliminating 7 potential dream jobs from the dwarf acting community.
So without even being a Disney expert or a Snow White expert by any means, I think I can very easily count some of the things that Disney changed. So without being a Disney expert or a Snow White expert by any means, I think I can very easily count some of the things that they changed about Snow White in this film, such as Snow White herself, the 7 dwarfs, the fact that Snow White doesn't get saved by the prince, basically making the prince super unimportant. And I'm not sure, did they change the apple as well? I wouldn't be surprised if they went for some organic stuff instead of the red apple. I'm not sure. Maybe they did. But jokes aside, this really by no means was Snow White. This was another film. It was another character which was given the same name, Snow White. Basically, they tried to cash on the name, on the IP of Snow White without really making it Snow White. No wonder the film was such a big flop. But not all is lost, It's not like Snow White 2025 made no money. It did generate about $66 million in the US and over 140 worldwide, which shows that it was not really such a terrible film. It was just a terribly labeled and terribly marketed and terribly casted film. I feel that there are 3 things that Disney should do in the future to avoid such a blunder. Number 1 would be to keep their cast away from politics. Rachel Zegler's remarks on President Donald Trump and his supporters, which is basically majority of America, they were terrible, they were rude, offensive, and unacceptable. Disney should have actually come out and apologized to America for her remarks, but they did not. Number 2, if they cannot keep their stars away from politics, maybe they should just go back to making animated cartoon films and not deal with live action stuff altogether. If they cannot control their crew, their cast, their stars, just make cartoons. You were definitely better at that. Number 3, if Disney really loves its classic IPs, maybe they should just keep them the way they've always been. Instead of messing with the classics, they should focus on maybe making new IPs such as Moana. Great success, loved by everybody, nobody has a problem with it. But if you start messing up with classic IPs, that's when people really get angry and aggressive, because then you're playing with their childhood, the nostalgia. You're playing with it, and it's always bound to fail. Rest, I'm sure Disney is smart enough and wealthy enough to really analyze where they went wrong and what they can do to prevent such a blunder from happening again. I'm just an outsider here sharing my views with the world, and if you appreciate my views, make sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. And if you'd like to share your views with me, make sure to comment down below. I will be reading and I will be writing to all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Take care, guys.